Go.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're back here with the Rob and Mike Show. I am Rob.
And I'm Mike.
All right. We are proud today to have as our guest Jeremy Peterson, who's the Executive Director of the LIFT program here in Erie, which is a door-to-door transportation program helping people with disabilities and senior citizens. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That is absolutely correct. It's almost like you work there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I should work there. I've been riding the lift since like 1988. I'm a graybeard, I guess. So, Jeremy, let me ask you, how long has the lift been around, and how many counties do they serve? Is it just Erie County, or?
So the EMTA itself started in 1966, and it was taken over by we took it over by the Erie Coach Company.
Okay.
In 1969, our building was actually built on 14th and French. It was only big enough to house a few big buses and a few lift buses inside of it. And then we sort of expanded a little bit to include office space as it's got bigger. And then back in the Judy Lynch days, we actually took over the lift service. It was a county service that we had taken over from the corridor of the county. And since then, we've been operating it, and even till obviously present day. So from a few coach lift buses from back then until now, we have over 50 lift paratransit buses, i.e. vans. I mean, we've expanded quite a bit. Our service area is just Erie County, but there are some times where folks need to get to hospital in Pittsburgh, doctor's appointments, so on and so forth, and we'll make those trips also.
Okay, so if you had to go beyond the areas that you served, did you have to reserve like a week ahead of time, or how does that work exactly?
So normally for any regular trip that needed to be scheduled, you'd have to schedule 24 hours of
Right, yeah.
But for an out-of-town trip, those obviously, if you go to a hospital, let's say you have a checkup in Pittsburgh, the doctor's going to give you a slip and let you know when you need to come back down again. Okay. So at that point in time, most of our folks let our receptionists and our call takers know when they need to go back down. We make the adjustments on the schedule, and we would schedule it at that point. So usually they're more ahead of schedule than a normal trip that somebody would need to take.
Okay, but you need to for regular trips like around town or whatever, you call 24 hours in advance.
Correct.
Can you call before that? Could you call 48 hours in advance?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Okay.
Now, it depends on the volume of calls too. If there's a lot of trips being scheduled the next day and a lot of calls, our call takers may say at one, hey, give us a call tomorrow.
Okay.
But it depends on the volume of calls that they're receiving at that time. But usually, in any instance, if there's an issue where, hey, 2 days I need a trip to wherever I'm going, doctor's appointment, whatever, we would still take that down and reserve that ride for you.
Okay, so we have a couple vans here, and we do very limited transportation, obviously. But we ask, from the opposite standpoint, we ask for as much lead time as possible. Because with one van driver, two vans, if we say, if you don't give us a week, you're not getting on that schedule because somebody's beating you to it.
Right.
So
and post-COVID too, it's you need to make sure you have somebody there to drive. You need to make sure everything's staffed accordingly too.
So I know we had talked earlier, Rob and I, when we spoke earlier in the week, we were talking about the effects that COVID had on every agency, everything that every service that there is out there. How has COVID affected EMTA?
COVID has affected the EMTA and the LIFT substantially. Since the inception of COVID, when it became a thing, and businesses and the world started shutting down, it was something I've never witnessed before or dealt with. We were essential.
You and everyone else.
Yeah, right. We were essential too, so we had to still keep an operation, and it was like, wow, we got to get back to the drawing board and figure out what it is that we need to do. Demographic shifts, businesses started to shut down, but folks still needed to get to the hospital, their doctor's appointments, dialysis, so on and so forth. So we really had to adjust our schedules, and then moving forward, as we sort of, got our hands wrapped around, the vaccines were coming out and, masking and all these different ways to sort of slowly become open, but precautionary. We started to see the ridership, especially on the lift, go up more than our fixed drop, because obviously Erie is heavily senior and our disabled population is pretty high too.
Sure.
So we noticed the trips starting to increase about a year after COVID, and it was, and even up till now, we noticed a lot of issues that we had. Our biggest issue right now is driver shortages.
Same with the age like us with direct care workers.
And we just talked about it, your staffing levels and everything else, you almost need those phone calls ahead of time, more ahead of what they used to be, because, tomorrow you might not have what you have today.
That's right.
As far as staffing. So that has been right now, to present day, that is our biggest thing. The number of trips for our lift are at pre-COVID levels. We're anywhere between 600 to 900 a day.
Wow.
As far as lift trips, and we have probably 20 less drivers than we had pre-COVID.
Wow.
So these drivers of ours are coming to work, and they're working a lot of hours and going to a lot of different places. And once again, anywhere you see a big bus or a fixed route bus within 3/4 of a mile, we have to provide complimentary paratransit services. So a lot of people don't know that. If you see a bus, it's like, oh, that bus is empty. Why is it empty? Well, it's not that it's empty. It could be off-peak hours. However, we still run those buses during those off-peak hours so that lift service can be, available for these folks in our area.
Well, I know one substantial difference for me is pre-COVID, there used to be travel on Sundays, and now there isn't.
Yeah,
and I keep asking drivers and this one and that one associated with the lift, well, when is Sunday travel coming back? And it's always seems like it's the same answer. Well, when the big buses get it back, we'll get it back. Is that true?
So sort of.
Okay.
We're looking at our levels. We're looking at our numbers, and we our Sundays pre-COVID were very low.
Okay.
On both sides. And for us to operate 12 hours a day on Sundays, what folks don't understand is like, hey, look, if I take a bus, all I know is it's the bus that I'm taking.
Right.
I don't realize what all goes into that bus being in operation. Sure. So if I have a fixed route bus online, which that would mean I need a dispatcher, which means I need to turn all the lights on at work. Then I need an alternative driver, an extra driver, just in case something were to happen to this driver. If they were to get sick or, something happens and they need to leave or whatever the case may be. But then, once again, if you have that big bus en route, then you have to run that complimentary paratransit service, which means now you need lift drivers.
Sure.
Yeah. And then you need lift dispatchers. And then you also need mechanics. So you have all the building lit up then on a Sunday, and then if you put the service out, and it's like, okay, let's put it out for a few hours, if it's during church time or whatever. Then you have people coming and going, well, wait a second, it should be open until this time, and
right.
then you create, because if you can't open it up to everybody and everybody can have an opportunity to take it, don't do it. That's been, that's been my sort of experience so far in this position.
Right.
You gotta keep it equal for everybody.
Well, my thing was, how at some points they'll say we're only running the lift for medical trips.
Medical trips only, yes.
Wouldn't it be? Wouldn't it be possible to say that for Sundays we're only doing church runs? Is that possible, or is that like a discriminatory type of thing? I don't know.
What would happen, Rob, is we would love to do that.
Okay.
The problem would be you'd have, if you're appealing to the 3 or 4 that would normally take it to church,
Yeah.
right? Then you have more numbers complaining that, well, wait, if you take them to church, I got places I want to be too, and I need to go to on Sundays.
Okay.
So now you have about 20 to 30 other people going, well, I need to do this too. And then it becomes, the city, then they go to city council, and then county council, then they're calling me, and then it's like, so what I would like to do is I don't want to rule Sundays out forever. That's not our plan. I mean, we're to provide the service all the time as long as we can for our folks in our community. But we got to make sure our numbers are up. We got to make sure. Once again, we're heavily subsidized by the state and federal government. They just don't want us throwing their dollars away.
Sure.
To appease 10 people,
Right.
even though
I understand.
each one of our people that we transport, I feel are very important to us. But once again, when you're heavily subsidized the way we are, we make zero money off of fares. That's if we weren't subsidized, we're subsidized at a local, smaller, local level, but much higher at the state and federal level too. So
we,
at the end of the day, that's who built our building.
I understand.
That's who buys our buses.
Sure.
And that's who employs our people. That's the money we use, and we really don't want to make them mad. So
Right. Yeah.
at least I try not to.
I get it.
So I'm guessing, I mean, you've said, somebody's going to call in and say, well, when you're driving them to church, why don't you drive us to this place or that place? Do you get a lot of consumer complaints or people being upset with whether it's wait times or whatever it might be, not going to a certain place?
As far as Sundays, I think people have understood that. Like, okay, we get it. But yeah, I mean, the second part, we do have issues with, when you're short-staffed, we do have issues at times where people are getting picked up within that certain window.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have is we have a what they call eco lane on the buses. It's a state initiative. What this eco lane technology does on our buses is we used to have written manifests of, hey, I'm picking up Rob at 12:30, and then I got to go pick up Susie at 1:30, and then we got to pick up, drop off. They're all written manifests. Now with EcoLane, it's a tablet that's on the buses that basically electronically tells you where to go and drop off.
That was a PennDOT creation.
It was a PennDOT creation. It wasn't something that we just, hey, look, this is great, So we're entering the world of nonstop, upgrades of technology, and we're doing these things. I'm not saying I'm a fan, or I'm not, because I'm not calling and saying, why are you bad mouthing or something? I'm not bad mouthing anything. All I'm saying is, when there's upgrades in technology, there's also hiccups and discrepancies with things. So we try to stay on top of that. But if you couple that with this COVID issue that continues to linger, is the short staff of drivers, and that's that. We have a new HR human resource director, Teresa Kroll, and I have a great director of marketing, Sarah Morrison, and those two have been at it as far as trying to recruit for drivers. We've looked at, is it a bonus thing? Is it money we have to throw at folks? What is it?
Well, in my opinion,
it doesn't help when people are saying, well, you deserve to be paid $25 an hour.
Well,
Once again, we're subsidized by the state and federal government.
Sure.
You can't just throw money away.
Pay so much.
Right.
Well, the only reason, before you go, Rob, the reason, and you might be going to say the same thing, the reason I brought that up is for a positive reason, is because, every company gets complaints about things that they do. But me and Rob talked a couple days ago about the alternative, some of the alternative transportation.
Yeah, I've experienced it myself, or I've heard enough stories to know, 2-hour wait times, and you have to call 72 hours in advance. Or, I tell people here locally, if you think the lift is bad, you want to go to other cities. Matter of fact, since I don't drive, one of the big things that keeps me in this town, it's not the weather, okay, it's the lift, okay? Because I know if I go to like Philadelphia or Reading or Pittsburgh, it's not going to be as good as it is here.
Right, and people, our folks in Erie don't understand how good we really have it. If you've been from Erie like me, and never been anywhere else, and lived anywhere else, you don't realize how good we have it here.
Right.
I mean,
Very true.
the state does do a really good thing as far as taking care of its seniors. You know, the lottery, you know, 65 and older, you know, that's one of the funding sources for the lift. If you're a senior, you get a free bus pass. You know, and that bus pass just doesn't work in Erie. It works in Philadelphia, it works in Pittsburgh, it works statewide initiative through the lottery, right? So, but in Erie, I mean, we're not as big as Philly and Pittsburgh. So, you know, if it's easier for us to pick people up and get them to where they gotta go.
Sure.
Because quite frankly, you know, from downtown, for me to go from downtown from my office to here, you know, an Erie-minded person's like, wow, that's all the way across town.
Yeah, right.
For somebody from Pittsburgh, that's
They
a,
laugh at us.
Yeah,
we could walk there,
away, yeah.
you know, or we could, you know, these people are like, what? You know, no, we gotta drive. We don't, you know, for Erie, like I said, the mindset of Erie folks are brought there. And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very, that's, my experience is being an Erie person, or just that, you know, we're used to accessibility,
Very used to it.
you know, and if we don't have a parking ramp next to a certain place, or you know, these people double park, you know, but we've got a bus company, I'm like, well, we don't take a bus. It's like, it's Erie-minded, right?
Right.
But yeah, getting back to the lift, I mean, we're monitoring this on a weekly to monthly basis too. We just started, you know, a few months back, our operations meetings with all our department heads. We go over ridership. We go over not only just on the fixed route, but we have our leadership over from the lift involved in these meetings. Look at how many trips and what we're averaging per day, so on and so forth. And you know, we look at that. Okay, how many drivers do we need? Okay, hey, look, we need to go find a career fair somewhere, or we need to start our own. You know, Chantel Hilliard's been great. He's on our board. He's executive director of the Booker T. Washington Center, and has a lot of job career fairs too that we go to and take part in, just to help recruit. You know,
And I imagine
you don't need a CDL anymore to be a Lyft driver.
Oh, that's good.
You know, you can be a full-time driver if you want to be. You could be a part-time driver. We've noticed, you know, normally, you know, we've had folks that have, you know, retired that still would like a part-time job and stay busy, and they love it. I mean, they love the job. Like, wow, this is great, you know.
So what can we do? And I'm looking bigger picture than just the lift. I'm looking at the fixed route bus as well. As a Center for Independent Living, what might we be able to do to help you build your ridership?
So I'm glad you said that, Mike, because like I said, since this administration has taken over, we've really focused on our riders and how do we make our system better, right? For both fixed and lift paratransit divisions. We're right smack dab in the middle of a new strategic plan. Okay, that's really in depth. Part of that strategic plan is a new transit development plan. Toby Father, the former Deputy Secretary of Transportation, is actually coming in and helping us look at our routes and redo like our entire system. May introduce microtransit into our system. It's going to be the future of transit in Erie, Pennsylvania. And then also look at our paratransit division too. So I think what we could do is when Toby comes in, we really start to really dig into this, you know, involve folks from the CRI, you know, and have Toby and all of us hear those experiences that you folks have. Because if it's not for you, I don't have a job.
Right.
Let's
One thing I've
talking
noticed
about
in Erie, in my talks with other areas throughout Pennsylvania, when we talk to other centers for independent living, one thing we have here is a fantastic networking organization.
Yes.
Whether it's the ADRC link, I'm not sure if you have anybody who sits on these things, but we've got link meetings every month. I belong to the Niagara Network. I believe Chris Gerhardt used to come to some of those meetings. It's great. There's 50 agencies that are represented at these meetings, and it's all about helping each other. So, you know, that'll be something definitely maybe could you come and talk to that group sometime as an outreach?
You know, the other thing too is we're trying to expand our management over at the lift too. And somebody that's open-minded, looking at, we don't like the status quo. We don't, just because we've been running these routes for the same 40 years, doesn't mean those same 40 routes
Have to be the same way.
have to be the same way. Things change. It's in Erie. We've seen it change in Erie. We've seen, back in the West 12th Street days, like the prep days, trying to get to school. There was trucks and everybody owned a CDL in Erie, I think, because, that West 12th Street corridor was heavily industrial. Now you go by there and it's not, you have Dollinger Field, you have other things that have moved in, and so we got to adapt to that. And now with new Americans coming in too, who don't speak, we have to reach out. Those are the folks that are taking our services, and so there's different, blooms of folks that are taking buses. And there's and we got to make sure it makes sense for all to take our services, not just one. That's why I thought, hey, look, we got to redo this transit plan and take a look at our system and see, obviously the mall's still in Mill Creek, that price still needs service. There's other places that were as big as the mall that aren't there anymore, and we still service it. Like, why do we care?
Why are we going there?
Like, it doesn't make sense, but.
Well, there's another complicating factor, at least in my opinion, is the fact that now you've got Walmart, Target paying $15, $18 an hour, whatever. That's a phenomenon post-COVID too. The higher minimum wages and even fast food, right, is much higher pay than it was before.
Well, we're looking at that too, and like I said, it's state and federal dollars, but the state realizes that, and and we're involved with the Pennsylvania Public Transit Association, and what they do is it's basically us as a consortium of us and all the other transit agencies across Pennsylvania that get together and meet quarterly and on Zoom, and then we have conferences, and then one of the things that we had was, hey, how do we track younger drivers? Because legally you couldn't hire somebody 21. They had to be 23 and older. Now it's 21. The problem is like the state has allowed us to hire a 21-year-old, but you have to have a spick and span, motor vehicle record.
Okay.
You can't have any crimes or anything, and your blood type has to be a certain blood type, and you have to, it's a lot. So it's like, okay, right. But yeah, I mean, we have to adapt. We got to find drivers, and the good thing is, I think the state understands that. And when we talk about it, what about, hey, like you said the same thing, Ron. You got somebody at McDonald's making $18 an hour now. How am I supposed to tell somebody that drives a paratransit bus, we're going to start you out at 14 or 15, and then at your top rate, you're going to be at that McDonald's workers.
It's a different world.
Hourly wage.
It really is.
So, the other thing is too, is like, I don't know how people afford not to work.
I don't know.
Phenomenon too.
That's what I'd like to know. Yeah.
I need to work to pay my bills. If I go work,
2 years ago when they were getting checks every month.
Yeah, but those days are over.
About that.
Those days are gone.
That's gone.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, so how, it's not, people will say, well, people just don't want to work now. Well, I don't want to pay taxes either.
Well, and
But you still got to do it. I mean,
that's why, the government has to be very, and I don't want to make this politically, but you have to be very careful, because there's crazies out there that think that same way.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm not paying my mortgage anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need to. Like, why would I do that if I don't have to? It's just crazy. I mean, you hear these things in the news every single day, and you just want to turn it off because there's so much negativity.
Sure.
And then you go to work the next day, and it's like, man, I'm part of this because I can't hire a driver. I'm feeling the effects too.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we have people that are getting picked up for whatever reason and missing windows. Like I said, we've reached out. We're trying to correct these issues. We're doing a lot of recruitment, and we're hoping, in the future, we don't have to deal with that. We're back to the numbers we were at before as far as staffing, and everything's perfect.
Well,
Even, let me tell you, even when we had those 20, 25 extra drivers, we still had complaints.
Of course,
It's no matter
Of course
what.
you
We don't have a lot, but there's, the thing about complaints is I like them.
That's what makes it
Because,
better.
exactly, and then we have, I created a customer service.
Keeps you on your toes.
Right, absolutely, and we have to be accountable. Well, this is taxpayer money again, I mean, we don't want to make it a waste by not just attending to anybody's needs. Or if they have a valid complaint, like, listen to them. That's how before it was sort of like, well, whatever, no. If we got to focus we have to look outside our windows at work. Because if those people aren't getting picked up outside our windows, we don't belong, we don't exist.
Right.
So we need to start focusing, we need to get away from the internal grievances and issues and this and that, and look out the window and make sure we're taking care of our people. If we can't do that, you're either in the wrong field or you need to find another job somewhere else. Because I can assure everybody, you may not think that, but we definitely, we want to attract more riders. We love our riders, and whatever we can do to even get better and bigger, that's what we want to do. That's our focus.
Well, hats off to you, Jeremy. You
Thank
certainly
you.
don't-
I do have one more question.
Go
I apologize.
Go ahead.
A couple of years ago, this was pre-COVID, we had talked, I don't know if it was me and Chris or somebody, me and Kim, about the possibility of it would maybe be you guys doing some fundraising, if you're allowed to do that, and us being able to get our name out. We talked about maybe putting something that says CRI inside the lift buses, or inside the buses, on the sides of the buses, or inside the little waiting things. Is that a possibility?
That's absolutely a possibility. That's the other thing. We run ads on our big buses. They said, why don't we run ads on our lift buses?
Right.
They run throughout the county and everything.
Sure.
Like, they go everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
So we're open to that, but it's different, right? So we're very open to that. That's an idea I had, a couple of years ago. It's like, we got all these lift buses too.
Maybe it was you I was talking with about this, but yeah, I know we talked about it. It said, let's create a 2 foot by 4 foot. It just says CRI, and to give a brief description of what we do, and put it in the back of the bus.
Yeah.
You could probably get 100, companies, throughout Erie that want to get out there and do that. And then maybe that allows you to pay your drivers a little bit more, give bonus checks, or
like we've told people is people spend a lot of money, businesses spend a lot of money in billboards, and they're right there. They don't move.
Right.
And they're only there for a certain amount of time. Then they get taken down, somebody else gets put up there.
You're looking at about maybe.
I have 40-foot billboards.
Well, you're looking at.
That run, that are mobile.
That's right. With the billboards, you're looking at maybe $3,000 a month.
Yeah, right. They're not cheap.
No, they're not.
They're not cheap. And our ads aren't cheap, but they're digestible, given the fact that, that's for 6 months. Oh, well, that's not that bad. It's a lot cheaper than a billboard, and it has wheels on. Oh, that's crazy. So, we're trying. I wish we'd come back and talk, talk more. We have more time, but I just want to, from the EMTA to all of you, at CRI and everywhere, just the community alone, I really appreciate giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're going through and what we're doing, and as we get the word out.
Yeah.
Because we're very transparent, more than we've ever been, and we want to continue to do that. And I want to really thank you guys.
No, our pleasure. Thank you for all
Yes,
this.
thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Jeremy. And this is very informative. Great show. And we will see you guys next month. I am Rob.
And I'm Mike.
See you next
Have a
time.
good one. We'll just say stop.
Yep.